The anime begins with a group of childhood friends making a vow that when they grow up, they will become famous treasure hunters who will claim every treasure hidden within the imperial capital, and at that time they will be among the strongest and richest hunters in the land. We learn that the world has become filled with valleys containing precious treasures, but each valley is guarded by powerful spirits. For this reason, the profession of treasure hunters has become highly renowned in that era, as a treasure hunter is the one who manages to seize the treasure and claim it for himself. The days and years pass, and we see one of those friends after he has grown, walking alone down the street, recalling the innocent memories of his childhood. We come to know that this young man is called Cray, and that he is now heading toward the Hunter's Hall. Indeed, Cray arrives at the clan building and stands in a long line of hunters, each one hoping to be accepted into a great clan. Among those waiting is a girl who, upon seeing Cray, approaches him and introduces herself as Raud. She tells him that everyone around her seemed tense and harsh, but he appeared calm, and that is why she chose to speak to him. Raud explains that she is an independent hunter at the 4th rank, but wishes to join a party or a clan, for she has been unable to capture one of the massive treasures on her own. At that moment, another hunter named Greg overhears them and mocks her, saying, "What treasure do you think you could claim alone? You are far too weak for that. At best, you can only handle beginner-level treasures." His words anger Raud, and she begins quarreling with him. Their argument escalates until they nearly come to blows, but a guard intervenes, threatening to expel them from the building and deny their registration with the clan. They immediately stop, pretending it was only a joke, and soon afterward, everyone proceeds inside. At that point, Cray begins to explain to Raud the difference between a clan and a party. He tells her that a clan is a union of several parties, while a party is a group of independent hunters who decided to join forces. The clan they are standing before is called the First Steps clan, one of the most powerful and significant clans in the entire capital. Raud is impressed by his knowledge and wonders how he could know all that. To her surprise, Cray reveals that this is actually his 5th time here, leaving her astonished. She then asks him about one of the parties within the clan, and he tells her about Ark's party, explaining that its leader, Ark, is one of the strongest hunters in the clan, having reached the 7th rank, though unfortunately his party is not accepting new hunters at the moment. At that moment, Raud notices an empty seat and asks about it, but Greg interrupts, saying, "How could you not know that this seat belongs to the party of the Sorrowful Souls? They are the strongest party in the clan, and moreover, they are its oldest party and the very founders of the clan itself." Cray drifts into his memories, recalling that the Sorrowful Souls were once the party of his childhood friends. As he is lost in thought, the voice of a hunter cuts through, shouting his desire to join the Sorrowful Souls. Just then, an independent hunter belonging to the clan named Tino appears, ready to strike that hunter down for insulting their party. Before a fight can erupt between them, Tino notices Cray standing quietly among the crowd, trying to slip away unnoticed. She catches him at the last moment and calls out, "Since when have you been here, leader?" Everyone is stunned, shocked to discover that Cray is none other than the leader of the Sorrowful Souls, and not only that, but he is at the 8th rank, making him the strongest hunter among them all. Cray, however, feels only dismay that his identity has been exposed. The story then shifts into a flashback of Cray's past with his friends at the beginning of their journey as a party. Despite their young age, they captured beginner-level treasures at a record pace. One day, a massive beast appeared behind Cray. One of his friends shouted to warn him, but Cray, frozen with fear, could not move. Another friend leapt forward, slaying the beast, then turned to Cray saying, "I understand your plan. You risked your life to act as bait, so I could kill it. You are a true professional hunter, Cray." Yet in reality, Cray had no idea the beast was even there. As time passed, Cray realized that every one of his friends possessed a unique talent, except for him. He always felt like the weakest among them. For that reason, he decided to leave the party before he could cause them any harm. He told them of his decision, and thanked them for allowing him to be with them all that time. But to his shock, they ignored his words entirely, and instead decided to appoint him as their leader, believing his skill in delivering speeches would benefit them when dealing with other parties. And so, Cray found himself the head of the party, even though he neither understood why nor felt his strength was worthy of such a position. The scene shifts back to the present, where Ark interrupts Cray's wandering thoughts, saying, "You are a genius, Cray. You had us all wear the clan uniform while you disguised yourself and walked among the hunters to test who was worthy of joining us." But the truth was far simpler. Cray had overslept and failed to put on the clan attire. When he explained this, Ark refused to believe him, convinced instead that Cray was a brilliant leader. Seizing the opportunity, Cray asked, "So if I recommended a hunter, you would accept them and let me return home?" Ark replied, "Of course. I trust your judgment. Even though I do not need new hunters right now, I will accept your recommendation. Hearing this, Tino grew excited, believing that Cray would surely choose her, since she had trained under his friend Volto Liz. But instead, Cray decided to select another hunter, for he had no real idea how to evaluate them. In the end, he left the decision entirely up to chance. Cray chooses the hunter who had been quarreling with Tino, and learns that his name is Gilbert, known by his infamous title, the Sword of Torment. At that moment, Cray tells him, I will nominate you to join Ark's party, but first I must make something clear to you, Gilbert. A professional hunter is one who never loses, just like me. I have reached the 8th rank, and not once have I ever been defeated. Everyone is astonished by Cray's power, though the truth is that Cray had never actually fought a real battle to lose in the first place. After that, Cray throws one of his ancient rings to the ground and declares to all hunters that whoever seizes the ring will join them and may keep it as well. Immediately, a tremendous battle erupts among the hunters, each one striving to claim the ring. While chaos engulfs the building, Cray quietly walks away, leaving the place in turmoil, and thus, the day ends. On the following morning, the clans are shocked as they read the news of the heavy damages inflicted on the clan building due to the hunters' brawl, and it is said that the guildmaster himself wishes to see Cray. Cray refuses at first, insisting that Ark should go instead, but Eva informs him that the guildmaster requested him by name. Tension grips Cray, and he has no choice but to go. When he meets the guildmaster, he apologizes for the destruction caused inside the building. Fortunately, the damages were only material, and no one was harmed. The guildmaster responds, there is nothing I can do, for no one has filed a complaint. However, the First Steps clan is one of the greatest clans, looked up to by all, and therefore a punishment, however minor, must be carried out. The punishment was for Cray to choose one of the menial missions, those dull or perilous tasks that hunters usually refuse. Since Cray had no knowledge of these missions, he picked one at random, which turned out to be the hardest of them all, rescuing 5 hunters. Yet Cray remained indifferent, for he intended to leave the mission to Ark and his party. But when Ark returned to headquarters, Tino burst out angrily, telling him that Ark's party had gone on a mission for a noble in the capital and would not return for days. She then revealed that she was the one who had ultimately won Cray's ring. With no other choice, Cray handed the mission to Tino. But when she discovered it was a menial mission, she immediately tried to flee. Cray, however, bound her with his magic chain and brought her back, as she pleaded with him not to assign her such a task, claiming it was too difficult and impossible to complete alone. Cray reassured her, do not worry. I will bring you hunters to aid you. Soon after, Raud, Greg and Gilbert arrived at the headquarters, answering Cray's call for help. The moment Tino saw them, she grew frustrated, realizing she would have to work with them on the same mission. Cray stood quietly, watching them train, and the scene shifted into a flashback of their first arrival at the capital. His friends had wanted to apply to the guild while Cray refused, saying, if you wish to register, then do so without me. I will only bring you trouble. Please, let me leave. But his companions firmly rejected his words, insisting he stay with them as their leader. They entered together, 6 in total, and introduced themselves as a new party seeking to join the Guild of Clans. Cray approached the receptionist and asked if they could register free of charge. She answered, normally, we do not accept parties for free, but sometimes we make exceptions. You may register now, choose your party's name, and join us. Cray grew anxious, for their party had neither a name nor a symbol. The receptionist added, the name and the emblem of a party are among its most vital attributes, for they reflect its strength and identity. Take your time and choose something strong and unique. After much hesitation, Cray finally chose the name The Sorrowful Souls and sketched a strange emblem for them. When his friends saw it, they said it was not the best choice, as it gave the impression of a weak social party rather than a strong one of hunters. But Cray seized the moment, telling them, see? I could not even come up with a proper name. I told you I am not fit to be your leader, nor to stay among you. His friends, however, quickly changed their stance, declaring they admired the name and the emblem, for they were unique and stood out. They praised his decision, not because they truly believed it, but to ensure he stayed with them and did not leave. Thus was born the Party of the Sorrowful Souls, marking the very first step in the foundation of the First Steps clan. The story returns to the present, where Cray sits with Tino and the other hunters. Gilbert asks him, are you truly the hunter of 1,000 tricks? You do not look as if you possess such strength. Here we learn that every hunter who reaches a high rank is given a special title, and Cray's was indeed the hunter of 1,000 tricks, for he had countless schemes to win any battle. Cray then explains the mission to them, saying, the task will take place in the White Wolves Valley, the very same valley you long to conquer, Raud. Now is the time for you to fulfill that wish, and you will not be alone. Greg, Tino and Gilbert will be with you. But Gilbert protests, saying, no, I do not agree with this. I still do not believe you are strong at all. I feel as though you are mocking us. In truth, I am far stronger than you, so I will not accept your orders nor follow them. Despite the harsh words Gilbert throws at him, Cray simply replies, very well, then you shall not be part of the team. They will carry out the mission without you. Greg is strong enough and they will not need you. Insulted, Gilbert halts Cray before he can leave and challenges him. I demand a duel. If you defeat me, I will take this mission and obey all your commands. Thereafter, Tino steps in, declaring, the leader's stature is far too great to descend to a fight with you. If you desire combat, then face me instead. Though I am but an insect compared to the strength of the leader, I am certain I will defeat you. Gilbert agrees, and the two prepare for battle. Cray stands aside, watching closely, wondering who will emerge victorious, especially since they are both at the same level, the 4th rank. Yet Tino had earned that level through sheer effort and grueling training under Liz, without the use of any weapons, and thus she might surpass Gilbert, whose strength came solely from his legendary blade, the Sword of Torment. At that moment, Tino stood firmly in the arena, prepared for battle, declaring that she would fight Gilbert without using any weapon. Determined not to be outdone, he too cast aside his sword, sneering, impossible, a woman could never defeat me. Yet the shock came swiftly, for from the very first strike, Tino landed a powerful blow that sent him crashing to the ground. Still, Gilbert refused to yield and rose again, but Tino struck him a second time with a decisive blow that left him unable to stand. She told him coldly, if you want to continue fighting, then use your sword, because without it, you will never reach my strength. A heavy bitterness weighed on Gilbert as he recalled his childhood and youth, when he dreamed of becoming a professional hunter. Reaching the 4th rank, he believed he had fulfilled that dream. Yet reality showed him there were countless hunters stronger than he was, and that he was still only at the beginning of his path. His reflection was broken by Cray's voice. Weren't you once in another party and left them because they were weaker than you? Isn't that so? Stunned, Gilbert demanded, how did you know that? Cray then displayed his ability and said, I know everything about every hunter. At that moment, Gilbert began to truly believe in Cray's strength, regretting how he had treated him from the start, and agreed to join the team on the mission. Thus, the party set out for the White Wolves Valley, while Cray remained in his office, reading through the information about the mission and the valley itself. It was revealed that the tombs and treasure valleys were formed from mana interwoven with strands of energy, and that mana was the hidden force composing the entire world. But in the White Wolves Valley, these strands of energy were far stronger, making it one of the most dangerous valleys. The wolves that once guarded it had been hunted down, their pelts too precious to resist, but now a blood-stained wolf had appeared within, a sign of something far more perilous. When Cray finished reading the details, he muttered, fortunately, I did not go with them. Otherwise, I would be in grave danger now. At that moment, Ava interrupted him. I do not understand why you never take part in any mission, despite having so many ancient weapons and artifacts that could protect you. And by the way, you should stop buying so many of them if you never use them. Later, Cray sat with his companions in the guild where they spoke about the White Wolves Valley, declaring it so dangerous that the guild was considering raising its classification from the 3rd rank to the 6th. Fear tightened around Cray's chest, for this meant his friends had no chance of completing such a mission, with the strongest among them being only at the 4th rank. Reading the mission again, he was horrified to discover that the hunters they were supposed to rescue were themselves of the 5th rank. A crushing guilt overwhelmed him for having thrown his companions into such danger, and so he resolved to reach them before they entered the valley. Cray opened his magical gate and drew forth all the ancient weapons he would need. When Eva saw this, she exploded. Where are you going? He answered lightly, I'm only going out for a walk. Then, opening the window, he suddenly spread his magical cloak and soared into the sky. Eva froze in disbelief. Cray had used a forbidden artifact within the capital. That cloak was outlawed because no one could control it, nor stop, nor even direct its flight, making it incredibly dangerous. Clearly, Cray's journey to the valley would not be an easy one. The story shifted to a flashback with the Party of the Sorrowful Souls during their first week in the capital, newly recognized as an official party. They gathered in a tavern, celebrating their achievements, including having slain a beast in a level 3 treasure cave, despite not yet having the strength of that level. A nearby hunter overheard and mocked them. You're just children, barely achieving beginner feats. Two members of the party responded by opening a bag before him, revealing the beast's severed head. Shocked, the hunter staggered back in terror and fled the tavern. Cray sighed. I told you from the beginning not to bring the beast's head with us. Yet because of that act, news of their strength spread swiftly, and all the hunters came to recognize the Sorrowful Souls as a true and formidable party. The scene returned to the present, where Tino and the hunters had arrived at the White Wolves Valley, spotting the beasts that lurked within. They agreed to work together, though the monsters were far beyond their strength. Still, they fought fiercely, defeating every creature before them, though at the cost of nearly all their energy. After the battle, they questioned why Gilbert's sword seemed weakened. He recalled that Cray had been the last to wield it, saying, Cray must have drained all of its power. Sadly, I cannot recharge it on my own. Greg spoke with concern. This mission is beyond our level. We must stop here and call for reinforcements. But Tino cut him off firmly. We will not retreat. We will finish this mission as the leader commanded. This is the first mission he entrusted to me, making me your commander, and we must not fail," she continued. Surely Cray planned everything. By draining the sword beforehand, he wanted us to rely on our own strength, not on ancient weapons. Now, let us enter the valley and complete the mission. They slipped inside, using the trees to survey the beasts and count their numbers. Tino then said, "This valley was shaped for the wolves, which is why it is better to fight them here than in the forest. The forest is too vast, giving them room to unleash their full power, and in that case we would not stand a chance." Fired up, Gilbert stepped forward and declared, "I will be the one to begin the assault." Tino firmly refused and said, "Do not act before we agree together. I must protect the life of each one of you. Cray trusted me, and he is certain that I will keep you safe, and I must live up to that trust." After she set the plan, everyone began their assault on the wolves. She focused on each of them and thought to herself, "Cray is a remarkable leader, impossible to imitate. He can select each hunter with precision and care for this mission. Each one of them has an essential role, without which the mission could not succeed." Gilbert, confident in himself and his strength, fights without fear. Greg, with his vast skills and combat experience. Even Raud, with her speed and her focus on spotting the wolves, gave me the chance to concentrate more on fighting without worry. After a long and fierce battle, they finally managed to defeat all the wolves. Tino encouraged them. "We have completed a very large part of the plan, and only the final part of the valley remains, where its leader resides. Once we defeat him, we can save the hunters trapped inside." But Greg objected, "The leader of the wolves will be far stronger than all the rest. It would be wiser for us to withdraw now before we enter the valley and all die." Yet Tino rejected his words, saying, "Why are you such a coward, Greg? Just as we overcame what has passed, we can overcome what is coming." Her words pulled Greg into memories of his companions who had died before him in pursuit of treasure. That was what made him stop seeking further advancement after reaching the 4th rank, satisfied with hunting small treasures that earned him money but nothing more. It was what made him a coward, afraid to risk his life. But Tino's words stirred his courage again, and he decided to take the risk once more, agreeing to enter the valley with them. Indeed, they all entered the valley together, where the leader appeared before them, towering many times larger than any wolf they had faced before. Tension seized them all except for Tino, who noticed that the beast's body was covered entirely with armor, except for its unprotected head. She devised a plan with the team to distract the wolf until she could reach its head. They carried out the plan, and Tino rushed and leapt onto the wolf's back. Though her leg was gravely injured, she pressed on without surrender until she drove her blade into its head, killing it instantly as its body dissolved. The others rushed to her side, but she reassured them, taking one of her healing potions. The whole team felt victorious, believing they had finally completed the mission and reached the hunters. Yet they did not know the true danger had only begun, for 4 more colossal wolves suddenly emerged from the valley's fissures, each as massive as the leader they had just slain. All were struck with terror as the threat closed in, but Tino declared, "I know that Cray planned all of this, and surely his plan is sound, but this is far beyond our level. Nevertheless, we must follow the leader's strategy." Despite her severe injury, she insisted on fighting the wolves, knowing well she could never defeat them, that death was far more likely than survival. At that moment, Greg and Gilbert stopped her, saying, "We will fight instead. If anyone must die, let it be us." Meanwhile, Cray was on his way to them, flying uncontrollably with his magical cloak, unable to direct its speed or course. He crashed into the valley at tremendous speed, slamming into the wolves and toppling them to the ground. Tino rejoiced at once upon seeing him, convinced this was his grand plan to rescue them, never realizing it was pure accident and that Cray himself had no idea what he was doing. As one wolf regained its footing and slashed at him with its sword, Cray remained unscathed, for he possessed the 17 bracelets, each one a life of its own, saving him from death. The first bracelet shattered, leaving him 16 more, 16 chances for survival. "Leave this to me," Cray said. "I will handle these wolves." He unleashed his ancient weapons against them, but even with their power, he could not kill a single one. At last he resorted to his final trick, his magical chain. He hurled it skyward, detonating it and releasing a thick gas that spread across the field, scattering the wolves. "Quick, let's escape!" he cried. They all rushed into a small passage within the valley that the massive wolves could not enter. Tino thought to herself that Cray had done all this to save her, recalling the first time she had seen him as a child, when 2 evil hunters tried to kidnap her and Cray, and his party rescued her, defeating the villains. From that day onward, she had loved him and longed to join his party. In that moment, Cray noticed her injury and healed her with one of his ancient tools, then said, "These wolves are of too high a level. We cannot defeat them. It is best for us to leave this valley now and decide later." The others agreed and followed him with trust, while the truth was that Cray himself was terrified, lost, and had no idea how to escape the valley. Amidst it all, Kray's mind wandered back to the first time he had purchased ancient weapons and tools. His companions had marveled at what he had acquired, each choosing something for themselves. One of them chose a magical bag that could hold objects far larger than its size, yet exploded if anything other than chocolate was placed inside. She had wondered why Kray would buy such a thing, and he answered with a smile that he had purchased it simply because it was cheap. Then Liza chose a bracelet, but she was shocked to find it unbearably heavy, dragging her arm down until she collapsed to the ground. From Kray, she learned that this bracelet was called the Maze Bracelet, designed to alter a human's mass and size, and that a single misuse could cause an internal explosion, killing its bearer instantly. Terrified, Liza tried desperately to remove it, but failed. After that, we moved to Luke, their third companion, who picked a sword with a fearsome appearance. Before Kray could warn him that the sword was cursed, it was too late. The moment he touched it, the sword's effect consumed him, twisting him into a violent being intent on killing anyone in sight. Fortunately, the others restrained him before disaster struck. Though they first thought these relics were strange and useless, they later realized how vital they were, for they became tools to train themselves in mastering their own powers. Kray then awoke from his memories, drowning in confusion, unsure of what to do about the trap he was in. He considered asking Tino for help, but he imagined she would despise him if she saw his true weakness, so he kept walking without knowing where they were headed. Tino interrupted his thoughts, saying, "I know you must have drawn up a plan, and that's why you brought us down this path. But can you tell us where this road leads? It cannot be the way out, because if we wish to leave, we must pass through the leader's chamber once more." Kray was stunned by this revelation and paralyzed with indecision, realizing he had entangled himself and them in a grave predicament. Yet he pressed forward along the same path, clinging to the hope that it might somehow lead them to another way out. This time it was Raud who broke the silence, asking, "Where are we going? And where could this road possibly lead?" To which Kray, in his heart, admitted, "Not even I know where we are headed, Raud. I have no idea why you all made me the leader." While he was still lost in his thoughts, the startled voices of the team cut through. Tino declared, "Didn't I tell you the leader had a plan and knows exactly what he is doing?" Kray himself had no idea what she was referring to until he turned around and was equally astonished, for there appeared the hunters' party that had set out from the very beginning to rescue them. Kray's companions rushed toward them, desperately seeking aid, for they were in dire condition, completely drained of strength. Tino produced the healing potions she carried and distributed them, while Kray, recalling the magical chocolate, began handing it out as well to grant them a little energy. Afterward, Kray approached the leader of the party, whose name was Rudolph, and asked what had happened to them. Rudolph recounted their encounter with the leader they had faced, one more terrifying than any monster before. Surprised, Kray replied, "I know the White Wolves are powerful, but not so powerful that an entire 5th rank party could not defeat one." But Rudolph shook his head. "White Wolf? What White Wolf are you speaking of?" "I mean the skull-faced leader, the very embodiment of hatred whose strength equals that of 1,000 swords." At those words, shock rippled through everyone, for nowhere in the capital had there ever been a beast or hunter as strong as the one known to equal the bearer of 1,000 swords. And here it was revealed that the title of 1,000 Swords belonged to Luke, Kray's friend and fellow from the guild. Then the team turned to Kray, asking what they should do next. Since he himself did not know, he told them, "This mission belongs to Tino. She is the leader now, and I will test her skill in command. We will all follow her word, and if she needs my help, I will step in." Though hesitant at first, Tino found courage in Kray's encouragement and agreed. "Kray is right. We must search for a way out and not waste ourselves against the leader. We have already accomplished our mission and saved the hunters." Kray approved of her plan, and Rudolph added, "I will protect your backs, but if anything happens to me, promise me you will see the rest safely out." Tino answered firmly, "Do not worry. As long as we have our leader, we will all leave safely." Before they could move again, a strange sound filled the air, accompanied by a shifting of light and fire around them. Alarmed, Rudolph said, "The leader has left his lair. He is coming toward us." Indeed, the leader emerged from the distance, approaching them, and behind him came another figure. The moment Tino saw her, she trembled and hid behind Kray, for it was Liz, Kray's childhood friend and a founding member of the Party of the Sorrowful Souls, as well as Tino's harsh trainer. That explained her fear. The first thing Liz did upon arriving at the valley was stride directly to Tino, scolding her for being weak, lacking ambition, and failing to accomplish such a simple mission. Then she turned to Kray, shook his hand, and said, "The moment I learned from the guild that you were here on a mission, I rushed to aid you. I am sorry for leaving you with such a weak trainee as Tino to support you." At that moment, Gilbert stepped in, telling Liz that Tino was a skilled leader and not weak, but Liz silenced him with a single punch that sent him crashing into the wall, before continuing her words to Kray. "I have just arrived in the capital, and the moment I learned from the guild about the mission you were on, I rushed here to help you." Kray then intervened. assuring her that Tino was an excellent trainee who had greatly aided them in this mission, and Liz found herself pleased by his words. Just then, the remaining massive wolves appeared, armed with weapons and rifles. Liz decided to face them alone, donned the mask of the party, and with one hand alone she caught every bullet fired from their guns. The sight made Kray's team suspect she might not even be human. After eliminating the wolves, the leader himself appeared, but even at her lowest level of energy, Liz defeated him with absolute ease and destroyed him completely. Thus, Liz was the one who ended the mission, and it was Kray's good fortune that she arrived at that very moment, bringing the day to a close. The following day, Gilbert decided to leave the guild and return to his old one to retrain, determined to rebuild his strength from scratch. Ever since seeing Liz, he had longed to become like her, able to deflect bullets. He left a letter at the guild to be delivered to Kray before departing with his comrades. Meanwhile, Kray sat alone, remembering the story of the party's masks. 6 years earlier, he had crafted masks bearing the emblem of the party to distinguish them, but his friends were astonished to find the masks lacked openings for the eyes. They assumed Kray had done this intentionally to train them to rely on their senses rather than sight, reasoning that if they could fight this way, they would become the strongest party in the capital. They praised Kray for this ingenious idea, while the truth was simply that he had forgotten to cut out the eye holes. Kray snapped out of the memory with a heavy heart, searching desperately for the ancient chain he had used in the valley, but it was nowhere to be found. Here, the story takes us into a flashback from a year earlier, revealing its importance. We see Stray, Kray's friend and fellow party member, handing him the chain and explaining that it was an ancient relic of her own invention, so valuable that she entrusted it to him because she would not feel safe leaving it with anyone else. She told him its name was the Slime Stray Chain, after herself. Kray, fascinated, attempted to open it, but Stray stopped him quickly, warning, "This chain is extremely dangerous. If opened, it could destroy the entire capital. Please, keep it safe." He promised to guard it. We also learned that Stray was an alchemist in the capital's laboratory, and though only at level 2, she was one of the most skilled alchemists, creating inventions both useful and at times dangerously unstable. The scene shifts back to the present, where Kray continued searching for the chain in mounting fear. He cursed himself with regret for opening it in the valley out of cowardice, but then he remembered it had been empty, which reassured him that nothing would happen to the capital, and that Stray may have only frightened him to ensure he would guard it carefully. He told himself, "There is no need to worry, nothing will happen to the capital. If danger were to come, I would surely know." He then left his room and encountered Eva, asking her about the state of the capital and if anything unusual was occurring. Though surprised by his question, she told him the capital was in its normal condition, which eased his heart further. Yet she added, "Strangely, every time you ask me about the state of the capital, some catastrophe follows, as though you are a harbinger of doom." Meanwhile, in one of the treasure valleys, Greg and Raud were battling monsters with a group of hunters, bewildered by the sudden surge of the creature's strength without knowing its cause. Kray, on the other hand, was wandering through the guild when he noticed a group of hunters standing before the training hall. One of them, named Seven, called out, "Hurry, Kray. Liz has been in the training ground with Tino for a long time, surely pushing her with merciless training. By the way, why did Tino return from the treasure valley she was in?" Kray replied, "She came back simply because she was bored, nothing more." Seven, however, was puzzled. Bored? How could anyone be bored in a 7th level valley? Surely it holds more monsters and adventures than any other. Kray then opened the door to the training ground to rescue Tino, and what he saw shocked him. She was in a terrible state, unconscious and completely drained of energy. Fear gripped him for her, and he demanded that Liz stop training her immediately, for she could not possibly endure more. And because Kray was the leader, Liz obeyed him without hesitation. But the true shock came when Tino stirred weakly, grasping Liz's leg. Kray then noticed she was wearing one of the party's masks. Tino, in her frail state, asked Liz to continue training her. In that instant, Liz's demeanor changed, and she said to Kray, "If Tino herself requests it, then I must continue her training." At that moment, Kray grew fearful of Liz's transformation, and left the training arena immediately, telling the other hunters, "No one can stop Liz now. Leave her. She will end the training herself." Afterward, he sat with Seven and began telling him about the monsters that had appeared in the valleys recently, whose levels had become far higher than those recorded. Then Kray remembered that the guildmaster wanted to meet him, and he thought to himself, "Surely he wants to speak with me about this matter. If only Ark were here, I would have thrown all these problems onto him." He then considered handing one of his assigned missions to Seven to rid himself of it, so he said, "Since you cannot use the training arena today, Seven, why don't you take on a mission and carry it out? That way, you'll train as well." Then Kray walked away, full of confidence, muttering that he was clever for escaping the mission that had been assigned to him. At that moment, a new hunter in the clan sat with Seven, and when he saw Kray's behavior, he remarked that Kray seemed reckless and cold, but Seven silenced him saying, "Do not be fooled by appearances. He is the one who protects the entire clan and maintains its balance. Behind his mask of indifference lies a ferocious beast no one can stand against." Meanwhile, the guild master was sitting with his assistant, reading reports about the new monsters that had appeared. For this reason, he requested to meet Kray and discuss the matter. When his deputy informed him that Kray claimed to be busy, the master decided to go himself the next day to visit him. That same day, we saw a group of scholars standing before a strange machine, and their leader, known as the Sorcerer Lord, said in astonishment, "How could Kray, at the 8th level, foresee what would happen in the capital? It is only a matter of time before they reach this place." But fortunately, they could not understand the nature of the device or what it did. We learned that it was designed to alter the energy of the valleys, amplifying the monster's strength while allowing only its creator to access the treasures and claim them. The shocking part was that Kray stood at a distance, observing and listening to everything they said. But suddenly, he awoke to find it had all been nothing more than a dream, a nightmare that felt all too real, as if he had lived it himself. The day ended there, and on the following morning Kray decided to take a break and go out with Liz. Yet as soon as they descended to the guild's courtyard, they were startled to find the master and his assistant waiting for them. The master said, "We need to talk." But Liz refused and declared, "Today is a holiday from the guild, and Kray is going out with me." As the master insisted on speaking to Kray, a violent clash broke out between him and Liz. Kray left them to their fight and sat with the master's assistant, who began explaining what had been happening with the monsters in the treasure valleys, whose levels were rising alarmingly without any clear cause. Kray grew anxious, sensing that the secret chain might be the reason behind it, yet he kept the secret to himself and told no one. Soon, they all went to stop the battle between Liz and the master, which had nearly destroyed much of the guild due to their overwhelming power. It was then revealed that the master had once been a hunter at the 7th level, later promoted to become the leader of the guild of clans. The moment Liz saw Kray, she calmed instantly, rushed to him and said, "Come, let's continue our holiday." The two then left to stroll through the city. Liz began telling him about the valley she had entered and the beasts she had faced, creatures she claimed were the strongest she had ever seen. Meanwhile, Kray's mind was occupied with thoughts of the chain, which he feared might bring about the fall of the capital. He asked her, "Tell me, Liz, if this capital were to collapse, what would you do?" She answered with simple frankness, "Of course I would run away, and I would take you with me to visit all the places I've always dreamed of seeing together." Kray was surprised by her response, for she had not even considered saving the city. At that moment, Liz noticed someone watching them. She seized him, ready to capture him, but Kray told her to let him go so he could learn his intentions. Yet, as soon as they released him, the man fled in haste. Liz thought Kray had allowed it deliberately, believing he had a plan, while the mysterious man hid himself and wondered, "Why did Kray let me escape after he caught me watching him?" Meanwhile, back at the guild, Seven and his party were heading to take a mission under Kray's instructions. Of course, the master knew that Kray had sent them to rid himself of the mission that was originally his responsibility. That mission lay once again in the White Wolves Valley, where new wolves had appeared, rumored to be stronger than before. The master had no choice but to assign the mission to Seven, who went with his team into the valley. There they soon found themselves surrounded by wolves on all sides, and Seven realized at last why Kray had pushed this task onto them. As for Kray, he was walking through the city with Liz. She thought he was simply enjoying his holiday with her, but in truth, he was following a map drawn by Eva, which marked the most dangerous streets in the capital, filled with thieves and bandits. He searched those alleys, hoping one of the criminals might have stolen the chain or taken the slime that had been within it. Liz noticed he was distracted, leading her down strange streets far from the main roads. She asked if he was on a mission or needed help. Kray replied that he was searching for something important, and once he finished, he would take her to eat ice cream, just as she wanted. At that moment, Liz spotted an ice cream shop across the street and told Kray that they should quickly go and buy from it. But the shocking truth was that this shop was actually the secret base of the same man who had been spying on them earlier. The moment he saw them approaching, he froze in terror and thought to himself, "Now I understand why Kray let me escape. He did it so he could find my base and capture me." While he was trembling in fear and uncertain of what to do, Sophia, the assistant of Master Sorcerer, arrived. It turned out that this man was also working for them. Once he told her what had happened, she helped him and quickly shut down the shop. When Liz arrived, she was upset and certain that the shop owner was hiding inside, insisting on breaking in and confronting him. But Kray managed to calm her down, telling her they would just look for another shop, and he led her away from the place. Meanwhile, Sophia reported to the sorcerer, saying, "Kray has managed to reach one of our secret bases, one hidden so so far away no one was supposed to find it. This means he has uncovered our plans and is close to discovering the device we have been working on for years. Clearly, we underestimated his abilities from the beginning. We must act quickly before he exposes our secrets. In my opinion, we need to eliminate Cray. Once he is gone, it will be easy to wipe out the rest of the hunters because he is their leader and the one who keeps them safe. After that, the capital and all its treasures will be ours, and no one will ever stand in our way again. That is why I ask you, Master Sorcerer, to grant me direct permission to kill Cray. Though Master Sorcerer was uneasy about killing Cray, knowing he was at a high level and nearly impossible to reach, he still trusted Sophia's strength and determination. Thus, he gave her the authority to act however she saw fit to further their power. This became the signal Sophia needed to set her plan in motion to assassinate Cray. Meanwhile, Tino's condition had begun to improve, so she went straight to the guild to check on what was happening. The moment she entered, she was stunned to see a massive gathering of hunters and soldiers inside. When she asked one of the guild members the reason for such a crowd, he told her these were Cray's orders. At that very moment, Cray appeared with Eva, and even he was shocked at the number. Asking her why there were so many, Eva answered, "I gathered all the strongest hunters and soldiers for you just as you asked." Cray, now nervous, replied, "Yes, Eva, but there are far too many here. I can't possibly pay all of them. Arch used to carry out every mission I gave him without asking for payment, and I miss him greatly. But for now, I'll only take half of them on the Valley of White Wolves mission. With that many, they'll surely succeed, and I'll be able to pay their wages." But the hunters grew restless when they heard this. They warned Cray that everyone was talking about the Valley of White Wolves and the new monsters that had appeared there. Creatures far stronger than those before. They insisted they would need as many numbers as possible, otherwise their lives would be at risk. At that moment, Ava reassured Cray, explaining that there were enough funds to pay them all because Arch, in his last mission, had earned a huge reward that was placed in the clan's treasury. Relieved by this, Cray agreed to send all the hunters together into the valley. The hunters agreed, but only on the condition that Cray himself would lead them and join the mission. Now Cray found himself trapped in a situation he could not escape. To buy time, he told them to go ahead first, promising he would finish his business in the capital, and then follow them. But Liz was displeased from the beginning. She had wanted to undertake the mission herself, but Cray refused firmly. Later, Cray bid the hunters farewell, giving instructions to one of them. "If you find a certain chain in the valley, bring it back. And if you see any slime, do not approach it. It will certainly be a dangerous one." The scene then shifted back to Master Sorcerer and his followers, who had just learned that Cray had dispatched a massive group of hunters to the Valley of White Wolves. At that moment, some members of the group said it was impossible to kill Cray now, since he would be surrounded by many guards. But Sophia denied their words and said, "I have a defensive system capable of wiping out all those hunters with ease. They are weak-level fighters anyway, and the only strong ones among them are Cray and Liz, since they belong to the Sad Souls party. This is the perfect moment to eliminate Cray, especially since no one from his party is with him except Liz, and I know her weakness and will be able to exploit it. Fortunately, Stry is not here, and even if she returns, I will kill her myself. She is my sworn enemy whom I've always wanted to get rid of, along with her foolish inventions. So, Master Sorcerer, I ask you to approve my decisions." The Master Sorcerer immediately agreed to all of Sophia's plans, and even ordered the rest of his followers to obey her commands as if they were his own. Meanwhile, Cray was sitting in his office waiting for Stry to appear at any moment. At the same time, he didn't know how to escape from Liz's constant insistence to accompany the other hunters to the valley. By sheer luck, Stry suddenly returned to the capital, and as soon as Cray saw her, he rejoiced greatly, feeling that both his problems and the problem of the slime were about to be solved. But he was shocked when she said, "I came back because I sensed a great danger approaching us, and the threat of the slime is growing rapidly. We must act quickly before it reaches us." Stry began to speak with Cray about the reason for her return, and during her words, she recalled her childhood memories with him, when she used to feel she was the weakest in the team and that she would never become a professional hunter like them. But when she confided her fears, he told her, "You will be a great alchemist one day." Cray's encouragement was what pushed her to pursue her dream and decide to become an alchemist who would help her team with her knowledge and inventions. The scene shifted back to the present, where Cray confessed to her that the slime within the chain had escaped him. He was expecting her to react angrily, but to his surprise, she spoke calmly and reassured him, "I designed that slime so that it could never harm us or harm you. Don't worry, it is impossible for it to hurt you." Although her words eased Cray's mind slightly, he still feared the slime might harm others. Then Stry realized that the slime had escaped through the drain in the bathroom, so she said, "Do not worry, I will handle this and save the capital before the slime spreads." At the same time, all the hunters had already reached the Valley of the White Wolves, where they were received by Seven and his team. They learned from him that Cray had told them Seven would be the leader until his arrival. They also learned that their mission in the valley was to search for the slime, and that if they encountered it, they should exercise extreme caution since it was highly dangerous. But none of them believed this, thinking instead that their weapons would easily kill a mere slime. They had no real knowledge of it and didn't know how to deal with it if they found it. At that moment, a woman appeared among the hunters and introduced herself, saying, "I am Talia, an alchemist, and I was a colleague of Stry. We worked together on the slime project some time ago, and that is why I know about it. I also carry a chemical antidote that can neutralize its power." After Talia's words, the hunters felt reassured and entered the valley together to search for the slime. But after some time inside the valley, they all came out injured from battles with wolves and beasts, and still they found no trace of the slime. Then one of the hunters, named Jane, grew angry and said, "Cray is a weak leader. There is no such thing as a slime for us to hunt. He just brought us here to fight beasts, and then abandoned us without following as he promised. I will not continue this mission. I will leave you and go." And indeed, Jane left them and walked through the forest, furious at Cray and his reckless actions. As he walked deeper into the forest, Jane heard a strange sound. He followed it and saw two strange men carrying a syringe filled with a glowing substance. They were standing before a massive bound wolf, preparing to inject it with the substance. It turned out that these two men were agents of the Master Sorcerer, and this was their plan to eliminate all the hunters, Cray included. At that moment, Jane ruined their plan when he attacked them, preventing them from using the syringe. He kept striking them both, trying to find out which faction they belonged to and what they were planning. But unfortunately, one of them escaped and ran toward the wolf, injecting it. The wolf's body began to melt in a strange way, then its size doubled, and it transformed into a rubber-like slime. Jane realized that it had turned into a berserk monster due to the increase of mana energy in its body, which meant its strength would now be many times greater than before. Feeling a tremendous danger, Jane quickly blew his alarm whistle, and luckily Seven heard it and knew that one of the hunters was in danger. He immediately rushed with the other hunters toward the forest where the whistle came from. There they saw Jane injured, crying out, "Cray was right. There is a terrifying slime in the forest." Before he could finish his words, they all saw the wolf that had transformed into a slime, its body stretching, screaming, and growing again. Seven immediately began shooting his ancient arrows to kill it. But unfortunately, not a single arrow had any effect except for a very slight impact. That was when Talia's antidote came into play. Seven took it from her and rushed after the wolf, throwing it in front of him. As soon as the wolf stepped on it, its body began to swell, and everyone thought it was about to explode and die within seconds. But unfortunately, nothing happened, and its strength remained the same. At that moment, Seven grew angry with Cray, thinking to himself that Cray had assumed all the hunters had the same strength as him and his party, sacrificing 100 hunters or more without even coming to help as he had promised. Just then, Stry arrived and said to them, "Cray sent me because he knew things would turn worse for you." Since Stry had immunity against slime and it could not harm her, she approached it without fear and began examining it and its energy. She discovered that its mana energy renewed itself whenever it weakened, but luckily, she had a stronger antidote than the one Talia had. As soon as she used it on the wolf, it was affected and exploded, freeing them from its danger. Then we learned that it was the guildmaster himself who had brought Stry to the site. After that, Stry requested an urgent meeting with the capital's investigators, because she knew who was behind what had happened. Indeed, the investigators arrived, and Stry told them, "Lord Sorcerer is responsible for this. He possesses a developed form of mana energy that increases the power of monsters. I knew no one would believe me, and that's why I had been investigating him for a long time, but unfortunately, I have not yet been able to locate his secret base." At that moment, Talia intervened and said, "Surely his secret base must be underground, because he doesn't want anyone to discover it, especially since he is a fugitive from justice." Stry praised her intelligence, saying she had never thought of this piece of information before, then apologized to the hunters, saying she was too weak to aid them with her strength, but she could support them with her knowledge and information. Seven, hearing her words, said, "Stry is a fierce beast, just like the rest of the Souls of Sorrow. There is no weak member in that party. They are all at the peak of strength." At the same time, Flake, Lord Sorcerer's assistant, learned that Sophia had asked them to start releasing the slime-injected monsters one by one. But when he asked about Sophia, he found out that she was not in the base and had gone out to continue her plan to attack Cray and the hunters. Flake grew furious and said, "How can we release a monster right in front of Cray and Stry? That would be suicide for us. Sophia doesn't realize she's facing the strongest party in 10 hunters. It seems Sophia should stick to chemistry and experiments and leave the matters of war to those who understand them, like me. Therefore, I will not follow her orders. Instead, I will release all the monsters at once so they attack together and finish them easily." Meanwhile, Stry was trying to interrogate the criminals who had injected the wolf, attempting to learn from them the location of Lord Sorcerer's base. But the two men were extremely loyal and refused to admit a single word against him. so Stray was forced to use the Confession Elixir, a potion that causes anyone who drinks it to lose consciousness and confess everything. But before she could force them to drink it, the investigators stopped her and said, "This is a forbidden potion, for it has severe side effects such as memory loss and even madness. Just because we trusted you does not mean you can interrogate criminals with forbidden potions, and moreover, right in front of us. You have abused our trust in the wrong way." At that moment, Stray tried to explain to them that there was no other way to discover the location of the Sorcerer Lord, and that she had never intended to harm them in any way. Yet with their insistent refusal, she confessed that the potion was a fake, that she was merely testing their reaction, but they had ruined her plan. To prove her honesty, she drank the potion before their eyes and said, "I will find the Sorcerer Lord's location my own way, before it is too late." At that instant, a beast emerged from the forest, and they all noticed that its color was different from the previous monster. Stray told them, "Every beast receives a different dose of mana, and each dose gives it a unique color and distinct traits." She then explained the plan they had to follow, how the hunters should spread out through the forest to defeat the beast, especially since their stock of antidotes was depleted. Yet the beast was far stronger than the hunters, and no attack had any effect upon it. Before Stray could devise another plan, another beast appeared, this one of a different color, and it approached the first. A battle broke out between them, and soon a third and fourth beast joined. The monsters instantly forgot the hunter's presence and turned against one another. It was then that they realized monsters injected with different substances saw each other as natural enemies and had to fight to the death. They understood at last what Sophia meant when she ordered the beasts to be released one after another, never all at once. Stray said, "What happened is a stroke of fortune, for we could never have defeated them all on our own." News reached the Sorcerer Lord, who immediately contacted Sophia. Furious, she lashed out at Flick for disobeying her orders and acting on his own. "I planned everything in exact detail," she shouted. "I never act randomly. If you had followed the plan, we would have won by now. But through your foolishness, you have bought them more time to pinpoint our location. To repair this disaster, we must strike them swiftly, and the attack must be with all the Hatred Eaters, for they are the only beasts capable of countering Stray's power. I emphasize, Flick, all of them, not one alone." The Sorcerer Lord then commanded Flick to carry out Sophia's plan exactly as she had said, telling him, "This is your single chance to prove your worth and amend your grave mistake." Flick vowed he would set things right himself. Meanwhile, Stray was studying the situation closely, seeking the Sorcerer Lord's hideout. Talia watched her from a distance, lost in memories of their past, for Stray had once been her teacher and comrade, always surpassing her. She recalled Stray's unmatched courage, never fearing even the most dangerous of experiments, and at times Talia had envied her, convinced she could never reach her level. Talia wandered through the forest, sunk deep in thoughts of Stray, until she encountered Seven, who was surprised to see her awake at such an hour. She replied, "I was merely thinking about this strange situation we are in." Seven told her, "Stranger still is how those criminals are focused on you. It seems they are fixated on the unusual color of your hair." Talia agreed with his words. At that time, Stray informed the guildmaster that she had discovered the Sorcerer Lord's location. She gathered all the hunters and declared aloud the place she had found. The prisoners, hearing this, grew furious and cried out, "No, that is not the leader's place. The leader is not there." In their rage and fear, Stray was assured she had found the correct spot. The criminals screamed, "Save us, Sophia." The hunters were baffled and asked, "Who is Sophia?" Stray answered them, "Sophia is my sworn enemy, the Sorcerer Lord's disciple and his right hand. She is like a phantom, able to appear at any place and at any time, and thus she is one of the gravest dangers we face." Once Stray had spoken, the hunters began their march toward the Sorcerer Lord's hidden lair. On the way, Flick attacked them, bringing with him one of the Hatred Eaters, a creature capable of unleashing terrifying thunderbolts that all surged towards Stary. Once Flick was certain he had struck everyone down, he landed proudly on the ground, watching the hunters collapse under the lightning he had summoned, and boasted, "I knew I could defeat you all with just one beast. Now I have proven that Sophia's plan was wrong. I must go and report to the leader about my strength that allowed me to wipe you out with only one creature." But suddenly, Flick was shocked to see Stary standing before him without a single scratch. Enraged, she said, "What beast do you claim defeated us?" That was a pitiful spell. I have trained against far stronger enchantments than that. Without warning, Stary pulled out a gun she carried and fired at Seven, and it turned out that the gun was loaded with a concentrated healing dose that not only healed him, but also replenished his energy, granting him the strength to dash forward and strike Flick with a single blow that drained all his power. Seven then turned to face the beast as well, but his strength could not match its might. At that moment, the guildmaster himself intervened and fought the monster, while Stary busied herself administering healing potions to the rest of the hunters. hunters until they had all recovered. They then quickly resumed their march toward the lair before the Sorcerer Lord could escape, and indeed they arrived just in time, preparing their plan of assault and deciding who would enter first. Meanwhile, Cray had finally decided to head toward his fellow hunters, a decision not born of his own will, for if it were up to him, he would not have gone until the danger had fully passed. But he was forced to agree, due to Liz's relentless insistence and her vow to protect him and let no harm befall him. Cray, accompanied by Liz and Tino, reached the place where the lightning had struck. Liz said confidently, "This was a weak strike. Surely it did not harm anyone." But Tino felt otherwise, sensing that it had been a powerful strike and that something serious had occurred in this place. As for the Sorcerer Lord, when the news reached him of what had happened with Flick, he grew furious and disheartened, muttering, "Flick is always a fool." He then resolved to unleash his final defensive weapon to battle the hunter's forces, save himself, and annihilate them all. He activated the mightiest creature ever created through their research, declaring, "This is the pinnacle of our work, the beast Akasha. Prepare yourselves, hunters, for Akasha will end you all, and none shall stand in its way." And indeed, Akasha, the savage beast, emerged before the gathered hunters. Yet he was not alone, for the Hatred Eaters joined him as well, their lethal thunderbolts adding to the immense pressure crushing the hunters. Despite their skill and strength, they could not withstand the sorceress beasts, especially Akasha, who erased everything that stood before him. In that critical moment, Liz finally arrived at the battlefield. The instant her eyes beheld the chaos, fire blazed within them, and she charged straight at Akasha, shouting, "Now has come the true moment of battle." Meanwhile, the criminals took advantage of the confusion, broke free of their bonds, and fled swiftly into the forest. At that time, Cray was still on the road with Tino, who guarded him closely. His appearance was strange, and the look in his eyes had changed, yet Tino noticed none of it. Instead, she continued to speak with him, saying, "I feel as though someone is watching us. There is something unnatural about this forest." Cray replied calmly, "It is natural, Tino, to feel that way. We are not alone in the forest. Surely there are many animals and other creatures around us, and it is only natural that you sense their presence. And you know I love peace, so let us leave those creatures be and continue our path." In truth, the criminals were indeed hiding behind the trees, watching carefully, and when Cray spoke, they thought he had deliberately allowed them to escape in order to plan a trap to capture them later. And because his vision was blurred, he asked Tino to walk ahead of him while he followed behind. At the same time, the battlefield was at its fiercest, especially between Akasha and Liz, who was known never to surrender no matter what she faced. That was why she confronted Akasha with all her might. The more Akasha remained unaffected by her strikes, the more she increased her strength to the point that she landed dozens of blows in a single minute. Yet Akasha's body did not weaken in the slightest. Instead, he struck Liz in her legs, and it was the first time she had ever been injured in battle, which enraged her greatly. At that moment, Stry tried to calm her, saying, "Enough, Liz, we will find another way to defeat him." But Liz flatly refused, shouting, "I am not weak like you. I will finish this beast myself." At that very moment, Cray arrived with Tino, and Stry said, "Now the battle will end." But Liz replied regretfully, "Unfortunately, the time has passed. I wanted to slay this beast before Cray arrived, so that no danger could ever reach him." Then, as soon as Akasha saw Cray, he charged toward him directly, as though everything he had done before had only been a waste of time, waiting for the arrival of his true target to annihilate Cray. As he closed in, everyone was struck with terror, and Tino rushed forward without hesitation to shield Cray, ready to sacrifice herself. But then came the shocking twist that stunned them all. A strange energy spread throughout the place, and because of it, Akasha stopped dead in his tracks before reaching Cray. Not only that, he was hurled like lightning and crashed into the wall behind him, collapsing completely, motionless and unconscious. At that instant, everyone was astonished by Cray's power, which felled Akasha at the peak of his strength before he could even lay a hand on him. This was precisely what Stry had meant when she said the battle would end now. With Akasha defeated, the hunters were able to enter the lair of Master Sorcerer, but as expected, they found that he and his soldiers had already fled. The day ended on that note. On the following day, the hunters remained encamped in the same place, and there the guild master spoke with Seven, saying, "Did you see what happened? How Cray toppled that beast in a single moment?" Seven answered, "Yes, that is exactly what happened. But what is strange is that Cray did not even touch him. How could he control his power from afar?" Yet the guild master did not dwell on his words, for he already knew that Cray's strength had no limits. Meanwhile, Stry was sitting beside Cray saying, "Your power is immense, Cray. You saved us all from that monster, and we thank you deeply for rescuing us. We are sorry that we could not complete the mission without you, but now you can rest. I will continue this mission in your stead, and I promise you I will capture the Master Sorcerer myself and never allow him to escape again." Of course, Cray agreed that she should continue the mission, for in truth, he did not care much about it. All that mattered to him was to remain safe. He did not even know how he had defeated Akasha the previous night, for he had been standing in the dark and had not seen what had happened at all. At that time, the dark sorcerer had hidden himself in a new place. The criminals whom the hunters had previously captured managed to reach him and told him that Sophia was among the hunters, and that they had seen her with their own eyes. The dark sorcerer then said, if anyone exposes her, either kill her or use her as leverage to pressure them until you reach her. At that moment, he realized that their defeat was inevitable, that they no longer had a place in the capital, and that they had to flee before being captured. So he ordered his men to reach Sophia, warn her, and inform her that they would escape. Meanwhile, Cray was sitting with the investigators and the guildmaster, who were trying to learn from him how he had managed to defeat the monster, how he even knew the location of the battle, and whether he possessed any other useful information. But Cray, who truly knew nothing and had only been guided by sheer luck, told them, I am sorry, this mission is now under the command of Stry, and if you want any information, you must consult her. At that same moment, the Dark Sorcerer's men had reached Talia, believing her to be Sophia because of their striking resemblance. The Dark Sorcerer said to her, well done, Sophia. Now you can reclaim your freedom and shed the disguise you have been hiding behind. Trembling, Talia replied, Sophia? No, I am Talia, Stry's colleague. But because of the uncanny resemblance between her and Sophia, no one believed her. They were all convinced that she was Sophia indeed, and that something must have happened to her, perhaps memory loss or a miscast spell upon herself. Talia remained trapped in that situation until the real Sophia appeared and stood beside her. The similarity between them was so overwhelming that everyone was struck with disbelief. Sophia then said, I know you are shocked by my appearance, but each of us is different in her essence from the other. In truth, it is not Talia who resembles me. It is I who resemble her, for this is her original form. And now I shall show you my true self. At that moment, Sophia revealed her original form, and the shock was that she appeared exactly as Stry. The Dark Sorcerer was bewildered, even thinking that Sophia had disguised herself as Stry. But Stry laughed and said, yes, I am the real Stry. Sophia was nothing but a persona I invented to reach you, Dark Sorcerer, and to uncover your schemes. That is why I pretended loyalty, swore allegiance to you, and even became your pupil and right hand. All of this was a ruse, to seize your laboratory and its materials, for they are extremely dangerous. If not used for good, they will be turned to evil, and that would be a catastrophe. Now, these materials are under my control. Do not worry, I will preserve them just as I preserved Akasha, for it was I who stopped him before he struck Cray. I knew that if Cray had faced him directly, he would have been destroyed. I have poured much effort into this project, and I must protect it and use it for good. As for you, your rightful place is prison, together with your criminal followers. Stry's words ignited the Dark Sorcerer's fury to the extreme. How could a level 2 alchemist deceive him and triumph over him? Determined to exact revenge, he unleashed all the Wrath Eaters upon her. But the shocking twist was that the beasts refused to attack her, for she had been their trainer from the beginning. Enraged, the Dark Sorcerer resorted to his final weapon, the Flame Strike, conjured from his magical staff, a force so devastating it obliterated all the Wrath Eaters at once. Yet the true shock came when Stry emerged from the blazing fire almost unscathed, her strength intact. She declared, I will not lose as long as I possess this. This is Stry's slime, a creation of my own making, and it feeds on all mana energy. The Dark Sorcerer trembled in horror, thinking to himself, if this slime truly feeds on mana, then it will devour the entire world, for the world itself is founded upon mana. At that moment, Stray said, I am still working on this project, but it only feeds on corrupt scholars like you. Her words unsettled the Sorcerer Lord, and he realized that his turn had come, so he ordered his men to prepare to escape before Stray reached him. Indeed, he attempted to flee and made it to the exit door, but there he was confronted by a massive beast that shoved him back forcefully into the lair. When the creature revealed its form, it was terrifying, and Stray declared, I created this beast from the materials in your laboratory, and it will not be I who finishes you, but him. The monster advanced on the Sorcerer Lord, repeating, I will kill you, until it seized him, strangled him, and ended his life once and for all. Thus, the evil of the Sorcerer Lord was finally erased from this world. Afterward, Stray went to Cray to inform him that her mission had ended successfully, though she never confessed to her disguise as Sophia, nor did she reveal any of those details. Not only that, but she also erased Talia's memory so she would forget everything and never expose her. The only thing Stray asked of Cray was to give her one of the Hate Eaters, since all the laboratory's materials would be exported to the Empire. Cray agreed, then asked her about her mortal enemy Sophia. Stray reassured him, do not worry, Sophia will never appear again. Cray believed that Stray had defeated her, though he had no idea that Stray was Sophia all along. Later, Cray gathered with the guildmaster and the investigators, where they agreed on what materials would be exported from the laboratory. Cray told them, "I agree that you may take all the materials. The only things I want are the beast Akasha and one hate eater." The investigators were astonished and asked, "Why would you want such a terrifying creature as a hate eater?" The surprising truth was that Cray himself had thought hate eaters were nothing more than a magical potion. Nevertheless, the investigators accepted his request and handed him one of the hate eaters. At that moment, Stray thanked Cray deeply for his favor, then went to prepare her tools so they could return to the clan headquarters. During this time, the guildmaster asked to speak with Cray in private. When they sat together, he said, "You know the festival is about to begin, and so the capital is filled with visitors from every land. I have received word that among these visitors is Arnold. Let me tell you, Arnold is one of the strongest hunters, ranked at the 7th level, and he has slain dragons with his own hands." Then he added, "But his only flaw is that he is from the countryside, from a humble village called the Village of Mist." Cray replied coldly, "He is a 7th level hunter, and I am of the 8th level. I can slay dragons with ease. There is no difference between him and me that would make me fear him or hold him in regard." Relieved, the guildmaster patted Cray proudly on the shoulder before departing, not knowing that this friendly gesture had actually affected Cray. Fortunately, he was wearing one of the ancient rings, and so the blow drained energy into the ring instead of his body, sparing him from having all his mana stripped away. Soon after, Cray and Stray left the capital's headquarters at the same time that Arnold entered it to establish his presence. He sat with his party, discussing what they would do at the festival, and one of them said, "Everyone in the capital must know that we are a strong party. Just because we are from the countryside does not mean we should be treated as less. They must respect us and fear us, for we have the strongest dragon slayer among us, Arnold himself." Arnold felt pride swell within him at their praise, and agreed with their words. Meanwhile, Cray and Stray reached the clan headquarters, where Stray released the hate eater from its cage for the first time. It was still small and had a gentle appearance, yet Ava was frightened by it. Stray reassured her, "I trained it never to harm me or Cray. Look for yourself." And indeed, the creature approached Cray, playing with him and embracing him, without causing the slightest harm. At that moment, Cray felt the mana being drained from all his ancient rings, and unfortunately, all the ancient tools and weapons in his possession had been depleted of their energy, requiring urgent recharging. These were the very items he relied on for his strength. It was then revealed that the one who had always recharged these tools was Lisa, the 4th member of their party. For that reason, Cray asked Stray when Lisa would return from her mission. Stray replied that her mission was far from over, and it would take a long time for her to come back. Cray said, "The tools need recharging, and no one but Lisa was able to do that." Stray reassured him, saying, "Do not worry, I will take care of it and recharge them all." Afterwards, Stray gathered all the hunters in the clan and said, "Since Lisa is not here now, who among you wishes to learn her talent? Mana recharging is extremely rare in the guild, but because this ability was one of the most difficult talents, no one dared to volunteer. Instead, 2 fairies mocked the humans for their weakness, saying they could not even recharge a few simple tools. At that moment, one huntress raised her hand, declaring her willingness to attempt it. Stray handed her a simple ring from Cray's collection to try recharging. After great effort, the huntress succeeded in restoring its energy. Stray praised her, saying, "Well done. Take these tools as well and recharge them." Though shocked, the huntress did not object, pushing herself harder until she exhausted all her strength and collapsed unconscious. Stray then told them, "Mana recharging also helps you increase your own energy. For each time you exhaust yourselves in recharging, your bodies will produce more mana in the next attempt, and I will help you increase it further." She gave the huntress a special potion, and once she drank it, she revived, her energy multiplying many times over. All the hunters were astonished and asked to join the training. Stray agreed, and began handing each of them a tool or weapon from Cray's collection to train on and recharge. In this way, all of Cray's tools were recharged without the need for Lisa to return from her mission. As for Cray, he was stunned by the amount of energy Stray expended on his behalf and felt guilty for burdening her so much without realizing it. Meanwhile, in one of the noble palaces, Ark was meeting with a high-ranking official of the kingdom, the same man who had once assigned him a mission. The noble asked Ark to leave the clan first steps and work with him directly, but Ark apologized and refused, saying he still had much to learn from the master of 1,000 tricks, referring to Cray. The noble could not oppose him, even though he believed Ark was far stronger than Cray. Later, Cray was seen heading with Stray to Liza's house. house, where it was revealed that Liza and Eva were actually sisters, despite their vastly different personalities. Cry invited them to dinner with him and Stray, and soon they were all going out together daily, dining and spending evenings together. At the same time, however, Arnold was in the same restaurant, where he picked a fight with one of the patrons. One of Arnold's men shouted loudly, "Do you not know who this is? This is Arnold, the Dragon Slayer, holder of the 7th rank, who could defeat you all with ease, you weaklings." Upon hearing this, Liza grew irritated. Pretending to be impressed, she approached Arnold and offered him a drink as if it were free. But the moment he drew near, she struck him with all her might, sending him crashing to the ground. And she did not stop there. She also struck down every one of Arnold's men who tried to approach her. With Liza's overwhelming strength, none of them could stand against her, and soon they were all sprawled around her. Then Liza declared, "This is the fate of anyone who dares belittle the people of this city as long as I am here." The entire restaurant erupted in joy, cheering her name and praising her for restoring their dignity against Arnold and his party. But will Arnold seek revenge on Liza for what happened? And what is the secret behind Cray's unnatural weakness despite his status? This is what we will discover in the second part of our story. Do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel to receive all new updates, and activate the notification bell so you can watch the video the moment it is released. See you in upcoming recaps. Farewell until next time.